Hello, this is the last in our series of 6 demos, and it's about the post-implementation evaluation reporting. What I'm going to do is take you through on the slide first, just to show you what we're going to go through. Then we're going to go through it, then we're going to come back and revisit this slide so that we can talk about the steps. It all starts with the stakeholders. So in this case, there's stakeholders at the end that are required to review the peers report that comes out at the end. Once the stakeholders are formed for that report, they're going to be assigned a task. Just like the workers of a project would be assigned a task, or the solicitation teams would be assigned a task. Once they get assigned this task, they're going to get notified by an email. The email will explain that they need to go to a certain place, and all the information for peers is available in that specific place for that specific project. They'll then go to the stakeholders review portal, pictured in the bottom left, and then once they're done reviewing, they'll go back to that initial email that they had. There's an approval button, and it'll also be available in their portal. Once they're satisfied with the information on the project, they can finalize it by clicking on Approve. Once all 3 approvers click on Approve, that they do in fact have all the peers data that's required, we'll go ahead and submit the report, and at the end, the report submission, that finalization, will generate a PDF, and it will take all the information from the project and it will put it in that fillable PDF where it can be archived onto your SharePoint site. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the pieces of this just so that we understand how it works inside of ServiceNow. When anybody logs into ServiceNow, they'll get a home screen. And this is the PMO Dashboard. But first what you'll do is you'll get an email, and the email would redirect you to this approval directly, or the approval, like I said, is in your portal. So there'll be an employee portal that people use on ServiceNow, depending on the agency that they're in. What they can do is they can go ahead and review this request for approval. In this case, it's asking for a peers approval, and it's a certain project task that it needs to go to. So from here in the email, there'll be instructions, but it'll link you into ServiceNow, and you'll be able to go into ServiceNow, and then there'll be links to the different areas where we go and look at our investment portal. Now in the investment portal, what we can do is share with all of the stakeholders the views that they'll need to see. We're going to look at all the projects that are in the queue for post-implementation evaluation. Once I open that queue up, and there may be more than one project at this point, but this queue will have all of the ones that are awaiting approval. And right now you can see that there's one project in here, electronic health records. And it has different fields that I put in here, but these are not the defaults. These could be changed. This actually tells you the budget of the project, the cost of the project. I can do different things on here. So if I want to arrange it or pivot by certain things, I can drag those columns up here. In this case, that's not really that interesting because it's only one report. We can also look at this report besides these plan costs and start dates and end dates and the percentage completed is. I can go in here and pull up the final status report by clicking on Overall. When I click on Overall, this will pull that final status report that they did that could be also implemented or brought into the peers report. So this have a culmination of the executive summary, show your costs over time, it show you your history of statuses on the report, whether they went up or down. Any information we bring from the project, so key milestones will be brought in. They'll mostly be completed in this stage. We can also bring risks up, we could bring issues, decisions, lessons learned can be brought into this report. All of these different artifacts that we've collected over the entire length of the project can be surfaced in this report depending on what you need. Now, going on from the report, we can also see the timeline. This will give you a good idea of how the project progressed over time, and you can see we're right nearing the end. But these are the different approvals we got for the stage 2 stage gate, stage 3 stage gate, and stage 4 stage gate. And you can add stage gates on here as needed. This is just the default template. On the Financials tab, this is where most of the review will be done for the project, because we can also list, besides the costs and the budget, we can also list a breakdown here of all the different requests that went out for different financing. If I open up the electronic health records, it's just like in the peer report at the end where you have that spreadsheet. This is basically that spreadsheet. It breaks down all the costs over the years. And We can even itemize. If you wanted to go into computer hardware, there's only one in here now, but we can have an itemized list of all the different computer hardware costs, all the different project management costs. Even the solicitation costs, the hours that went into the solicitation, can be incorporated into these final costs. You'll see we have a functional cost listed here, but also as we bring in the actuals, and if we bring them in from a different financial system, we can allocate the actuals to the planned on cost. So if I open up fiscal year 20, you can see the actuals are listed in here. And what's going to do is going to bring me in, and it's going to list a variance as I bring those up. The actual requested was 118. We had an actual of 19,944 that came in so far. This is not one that I would approve because I would expect those actuals to be much closer to the planned costs. So all that information is available here. If I need to export any of this information to do a one-off or more analysis, I come here and export this information to Excel. And as I said, if I want, I could have another project in here, but the idea is to give the managers everything they need in here from a timeline perspective and a financials perspective. The final thing I want to show here is if we go back to the overview tab, if you do need to get to some of the details like we looked at earlier in some of the earlier videos, I can always right click on this and I can go back to the original demand. So all the way back to that stage 1 document where people requested to have this project started. Or I can open up the project details and go to the project from here as well. If you do require additional information, I'd be able to go to that project. Now the idea here is that once it's approved, once they click on the approve button, all 3 of the people that requested it, we'd go ahead and move this from the peers report into the archive. Once we move it to the archive, we would go ahead and generate a PDF. And on the PDF, we would attach that final peers report and the post-implementation evaluation transmittal, which is also a requirement under CDT. We would attach those both to the main project. But more importantly, they would also be stored inside of your SharePoint site with your other relevant documentation that's attached to this project. Just to wrap up, I want to revisit this slide one more time. Let's go back to the stakeholders. There's stakeholders with every project that happens that's following the PALS process. Those stakeholders are tasked at the end with doing the final review and giving the final check off that all the information for peers is as they expected, and it's accurate and it's complete. So once they're assigned that task, they get an email that lets them come in and check the information that's available, including the final report. So they'll go in and do that stakeholders review, hopefully in that single screen. But if they needed to, there's the ability to drill down into the project itself to look at more details if they really want to go down deep. But the idea is to have everything at that top level screen. After that review, all the information on the final, mostly the financials, but also the goals achieved, they can go ahead and click on approve to say that they're satisfied with the peers information. At the end, a transmittal will happen where it will automatically take the information from the project. It will generate a PDF. All the fillable fields will be filled in from the data that the stakeholders reviewed. And that's it. That's the end of our peers process. And as we mentioned earlier, this can certainly be customized to meet your agency's needs. Thank you very much.